Okay, guys, now the exciting part where we start putting our design together in Fusion 360 as we just did it on paper. Now you'll notice that I've already got the model here, which means that, I've got a couple of steps ahead. But for this lesson, I'm going to start from scratch, a complete new model, and take it step by step as I designed it, from the sketch stage to the full final 3D model in Fusion 360. Now you'll notice we've got a blank workspace here. So the first thing that I like to do is just save the file as something so that we could start with that. So I click on the save button and we can say, in this case, we'll go 002 and we'll call it the side table design. Just go capture. Okay, so now you'll notice on the left hand side it's creating a new file over here, and there's a side table design, and you'll notice that the name also changes up top here, which means that we've got a model, we've got our file, and we're off. We can activate the layout grid in this case, which I will not do for now. As I mentioned earlier, it's not the way that I prefer to work, but you're welcome to activate that. So the first thing that you've got to understand with Fusion 360 is that you can design on different planes. So you can create a sketch either from the top or from the side or from the bottom or from whichever angle you want to create a sketch. So with this specific coffee table or side table design that we've done in the previous video demonstration on the sketch side of things, the way forward that would make the most sense according to me would be to do it from a top view. Now you might feel more comfortable doing it from a side view, which is also fine, but I think for this lesson we will work on a top view design. It's just a very easy way to get this specific design out. So first thing you'll do is in your design workspace, we'll start off with a sketch. Simply click on the sketch icon over here, and then you select the face that you want to sketch on. In this case, from top down, so we're going to click on that one, and you'll notice that on the cube here, we've got a top view, and your sketch tools are open on this side. So we will start off with the actual round top, which we said would be a 500 diameter. So once you go on the create line, you'll see the circle version. I've got a center diameter circle, and you've got a 2-point. You've got all these different ways of creating a circle. What we'll do is we'll take the center diameter circle, and you'll notice that it's also on my toolbar over here. Again, the way that you would do that is simply clicking on the 3 buttons on top, pin to toolbar, and it'll be visible in your toolbar. If that's something that you want to do on a frequent basis. If you want to do circle, these tools as you see them here is my most common tools as I use them. So, there are some sketch tools here that I don't use as frequently, but basically I customize this as I need. So we're in the sketch workspace now at the moment. Basically what will happen is we'll just do our circle or circle diameter, and we said we're going to make it 500 millimeter, and then we hit enter and then F6 to make it fit. That's just the auto zoom type of thing. So this would be the tabletop itself. Now you can see that the tabletop from our center point worked its way around the X and Y on this perfectly, because we started with this point and it stretched out to whatever diameter we put up here. So this is the center point. So now the way that you can work the sketch is if you wanted to do additional lines, you can simply select a line tool. You can sketch lines and do all kinds of things with them. You've got your basic lines and you've got construction lines. So what we usually do is you can select a line and then select a line type and turn that into a construction line. Now basically what will happen is this space will not be selectable if the construction lines, these are kind of, call them guidelines for you to be able to figure out what you want to put where. The construction lines help you to sort of get an idea of what it's kind of hard to explain how useful they can become, because if you want to set up guides in order to keep something aligned or whatever, the construction lines help a lot simply because they don't form part of a solid model when you extrude and all kinds of things. But we'll cover that in deeper detail later. For the moment, I just wanted to explain that we can put a couple of construction lines and we can put solid lines. Solid lines is actually your model line. Now, on the design that we did on the sketch, we'll go with a rectangular tool, also from a center point, seeing that this is a round model and everything's from a center point. And then we said that we will go with a side width of 100 millimeters and a length of 400 millimeters. That was what we decided originally. So we simply select it like that. And then we can do the same thing with a rectangular center point. I think let's just pin this to the start as well. And then from there we can go up this way. Again, that length will be 400 millimeters and the other one would be 100 millimeters. Okay. Now you'll notice that all these lines are visible and can become quite confusing. That I just noticed is not 400 millimeters. And this one also didn't go to 100 millimeters. Okay, those are now accurate. Now you could use the trim tool to hide any lines that you don't want visible. So I usually just clean it up with the trim tool when I've got too many things to, in the way that can cause confusion, because it can become quite confusing when you've got thousands and thousands of lines intersecting and all kinds of things. So if you can recall, on the drawing itself, we had this cross type design and we had the circle around, sort of almost like a medical first aid type of symbol in a sense. So it's quite important. Now, if you do sketches, you don't have to put your dimensions in. You can simply make it sort of snap to the grid that you've got here. I prefer to work with actual measurements so that if I wanted to alter this at a later stage, I could always just go into my measurements, change the size, and it'll change the sizes accordingly. So we've got our sizes as we've got it per sketch. Now, there are ways to make lines stay, I would say constrained to certain elements and guides and things like that. But we're not going to go into those technicals. The purpose of this exercise is just to get the basics going of how to design the coffee table that we sketched out. So please excuse me if there's a couple of questions regarding, all this equal and parallel and perpendicular lines and all of that. We're not going to cover that now. That is something that there are millions and millions of videos available online of all these functions that you can watch it on YouTube, or we'll cover it during later lessons. For the moment, we just want to get the basic shape going. So this would be the top view that we're going to start with. Now, the way that we could do this works. I mean, we could go in almost any direction to start building this, but we'll just stick with the basics for now, just to give you an idea. Now, the material that we use is a 16mm MDF. So everything needs to be manufactured using 16mm. Now, the one way of doing it is either shelling it out like I usually do, or to actually design this thing using 16mm. Now, the beautiful thing about Fusion 360 is there are so many ways to achieve the same end result, different techniques and different methods. So what I'm going to do in this specific case is I'm going to use a shelling tool, so that it just gives an idea of all the different tools that we can use in the modeling space, just to show you what Fusion 360 can do and how it actually works. Okay, so basically this is our design. It seems to be working quite fine, and there we go. So you can then click on Finish Sketch, or you can do Finish Sketch over here, click Finish Sketch, and off you go. You've got a 3D view of the table that we started. That's the top view. Now, you'll notice in your browser here, you've got the sketch that is available now. If you hide it, it won't be visible, and it'll be visible again, and that's it. Okay. So your browser allows you to see whatever's in your scene and how you've set it up and so on. So now the first thing we're going to do is select the middle part of our cross, and we're going to go to Extrude, shortcut E. So let's start with the shortcuts immediately. You select the part of the sketch that you want to extrude, hit E, and then we said we're going to extrude this by 450 millimeters. That's going to be the height of our little coffee table on the inside, as you might remember on the sketch itself. Okay, so on the operation type, we say the distance that we want to do is 450 millimeters. We're not going to taper it at any angle. If you wanted to taper it at an angle, you'll notice on the design, if you do that, it actually changes the shape a bit. We're not going to go with that for now. I think that's maybe an advanced feature for the moment. And then this extrusion would be a new body. We're not intersecting or cutting into anything else. So we'll just extrude it as a new body and we'll hit OK. Now I just want to put the camera view back to orthographic so you can get a sort of a semi 2D effect. So you'll notice now we've got this new body. When you look at the browser window, you've got this new body here. If you hide it, there we go, it's visible. Now this would be the basic shape of your base. Now you'll notice the sketch is now not visible. So the moment you extrude something, Fusion's got this way of auto-hiding the sketch by itself so that you can carry on to the next step. So the assumption is that you've extruded, you've done the part of the sketch that you wanted to do, and hide it, carry on with the next thing. So if you want to make that visible again, simply click on the icon there and your sketch will be available. You can also rename these to whatever you want, which is very helpful further down the line. Just to basically know which sketches or which bodies are which. We are going to be splitting this body into thousands of different pieces by the time we're done, so I'm not going to rename it for the purpose of this exercise just yet. So we've got our stand body basically completed, and now we've got to do the round top. So the way that I would usually do that is I would simply just hide whatever is visible that's in my way that I can't see, and then select all the parts that would form the top, hit the E button again for extrude. Now the material that we're using is 16 mil, so we'll put it as a 16 mil top. Again, it's a new body and we'll just hit the OK button. So hide the sketch and you'll notice that we've now got two body parts of this unit, and they basically, if you hide the one, if you hide the other, they form two separate bodies. They're not joined into one single thing. You can simply right click on this and say move or copy, and then you can move it within your 3D space, up and down, left, right, whatever the case may be. So that's one way of moving it. But what we would want to do in this case is actually have the bottom of this round top completely flush with the top of the base. So the way we would do it is you would go to the modify and you would select the align tool. Now I've added the align tool again to my toolbar. So basically what I would usually do in my workflow is I would simply select the align tool. We are aligning different bodies. We're not working in a component environment just yet. So make sure that you've selected bodies, and then it will ask you which plane of which model do you want to align with which plane of which other model or other flat surface, or whether it's a construction plane or whatever. So in this case, we're going to take the bottom of the tabletop plane and then align it to the top of the leg plane, let's say. And you'll notice that it completely moves the whole thing, and then you simply hit OK again. And on the front view, we've got that perfectly aligned. The top is going to remain to be the top, so we can simply click here, rename it, and call it the top panel for argument's sake. And now we've got the top and we've got the leg. Now this would be a semi sort of, I would say the leg at the moment would be considered a solid body. Now if I wanted to join these two things together as a solid body, what we would do is you would click on the combine tool and then select the parts, and then if you hit the OK button here, you'll notice that those two bodies are then welded or fused together, and it then forms one single body. Let's just hit OK there for the purpose of the exercise now. So OK. So now it's one body. Now this is not what we were hoping to achieve with the design as it is at the moment. I just wanted to show you how you can fuse things together and then it'll become one solid body. Obviously, to CNC machine this using 16 mil sheets is not going to happen. The machine can't accommodate a 500 mil by 466 mil type of thing. It's not a 3D printer. We've got to use flat sheets. So we'll go back in the history in the timeline where we had our two bodies. We'll just take one step back, and then we'll just delete every feature after the marker, just to take us one step back to where we were previously. Now, we've got our base and we've got our top. We're completely happy with the top as it is. It's not bugging anyone. So we'll just leave it as it is and we'll just hide it for the moment. Now, the first thing that I would want to do based on our design is to create a nice little base panel. Now, the way that I would do that is to create offset parts or slice parts. I want to slice this model. I want to slice the bottom 16 millimeters off of it. So the way that you would do that is you go into your construct toolbar over here, and you'll see you've got the option of offset plane. Now, offset plane gives you a guideline plane where you can then ask the software to slice and dice and divide a solid model like this. So we start off with the offset plane, and we click it at the bottom, and we say minus 16. And you'll notice that the offset plane is now minus 16 from the bottom of this unit itself. Okay. Now, the next step on this would be to actually split this body using that as your blade almost. So we'll click on split body. It'll ask you which body do you want to split, which will be the main body that is visible at the moment. And then what is your splitting tool? In this case, the offset plane would be the splitting tool, and we'll simply click it and say, there we go. You'll notice this red circle. That is exactly where it will slice this body into two parts. So then we hit OK. Once again, on the left panel here, I think let's just move that to the top. You'll notice that that body 1 now is divided, and you've got body 1 and body 3, which means that body 1 is split into 2. Now, you might wonder why the naming convention is like that. The top panel, when we fused it together, or when we created the top panel, that was body 2. So Fusion 360 automatically sort of recreates a next name in line. So now we've got this body going to, and you'll notice another tab here, or another folder, which is the construction lines. And that's that offset plane that we've just created goes into the construction planes over here. So if you hide that, then suddenly you don't have those construction planes visible anymore. Now, we don't have to do the same plane on the top simply because we've got the tabletop that can form part of those planes. We've got that plane and we've got the base plane, which gives us the opportunity to create all these different design elements in the middle, and then we've got the two caps, so to speak. I think a good way to handle this now would be to simply shell out the center part, because what we're hoping to achieve now is to do the slight pocket cutouts of these units. Now, there are two ways to do it. I'm going to show you the most basic way first, and then after that I will show you another technique that you could also use. It also works quite well. So let's just hide the top panel for now, and also the base panel. Now, the options that we have is we can turn this into a 16 millimeter shell, which is the one direction to take, or we could simply do a sketch on the side. Now, because we've got our sketch completed as it is, I think we'll just go with the sketch model, and it'll, at a later stage, maybe I can just double up the model itself and just explain to you how the shelling would work as a different modeling technique. So what we'll do in this case is we've got this model, and we're going to select our sketch tool again. And now you can select any plane that you want to sketch onto. So for now, I think what we'll do is we'll just select this plane over here. And you'll notice that this rectangle is immediately visible. So if we had to sketch this out, this is what it would look like. Okay. If we hide the model, you'll notice that there's a blue spot in the middle. That is the sketch area that we've decided to work with. Okay, so the next step would be to do an outline of 16 millimeters, because that's our material thickness. So you've got an offset tool on the modifier window, so you can just hit the offset tool, which is shortcut O. So usually what you would do is you would click the shortcut keyboard, the keyboard letter O, then select the line, and then select where you want to offset that line to. In our case, we want to offset it to 16 millimeters, and then we'll hit enter. Okay, so you'll notice that's an offset of 16 mil, and we can simply hit the finish sketch as we go. Now, that would give us a nice 16 millimeter wall all the way through. Now, the extrude tool itself can be used as something to build up on. So if I click here and I hit the E button for extrude, I could build up on it as join it in, cut, intersect, or create a new body. Okay, that's the way that the extrusion tool works. But I use the extrusion tool as a cutting tool a lot. So I'll click on this plane and I'll hit the extrusion E shortcut again, but I'll pull it back into a negative. And you'll notice that the cut option shows you, simply because Fusion is smart enough to know that we are going through our model space. And if I chose to create a new model, it'll create a new block. You'll notice the color change. If I say cut, it'll turn it into a cut line, which is what I want at the moment, and we'll simply hit OK. And you'll notice that if we look at it from the front, Fusion has now cut right through this model all the way through. So now we can do the exact same thing on this model over here. We simply create a sketch. Again, hit the offset button, offset this to 16 millimeters, or minus 16 millimeters, sorry. Hit OK. Get a sort of a view, and then hit the E button and slice through again with a cut version and say OK. So now we've actually cut right through this all the way. You'll notice if you spin it around, use the orbit tool, you can see exactly where we cut the unit itself. Okay, so what's nice about this now is when you look at it, you've got a 16 millimeter board here, 16 millimeter board there, 16 millimeter board at the bottom, and so on. Okay, so this is now split nicely into sort of what would be flat panels. But here's the thing. We've got a base panel and we've got a top. Okay, so what I would want to do in this case first is basically I want these side panels to clip into the base panel. So there's no need for the base itself here. So we can simply click on that one, extrude it again once into the negative, and it'll be gone. Okay, we can do the same with the top. Extrude it into the negative, and then suddenly you'll notice that there are 4 visible bodies here, because these bodies are no longer attached to one another. We've sliced 4 panels this way. I hope that makes sense. If I make the bottom visible and I make the top visible, then you get this visual over here. So let's just hide the top panel now. So basically we've got our side panels. Everything seems to be working quite fine. We've got our model and we say, okay, fine. Now what we would want to do now is create a little flat panel on the side here that's got the curved sort of window on it. Now, the way that I usually do that is to create a new design on this side panel. We've got our sketches. We've got our different sketches that we can alter again, but we're not going to go into those sketches for now. We could replicate or use the sketch as a reference, which isn't a bad idea for the moment. So we've got those 2 sketches. So let's, for the moment, just do that. I'm going to simply click on that outline and say, hit extrude again, and then say 16 mil. And then I'm going to say new body, because I wanted to form a new body over there. And we'll do the same here. We'll say E16, and we wanted to create a new body. Okay? And we can then hide those sketches. So this is sort of a replicated version of this. So I just want to show you what we'll do is we'll model this single side and then just copy and paste it to the other side. So we don't have to sketch it in every single panel. So for the moment, we'll take this last body that we created and we'll just remove it like it was never there. And we'll switch over to this one that we just added. So I think just for the purpose of the exercise, let's just hide all the other models for the moment and say, okay, this is the thing that we want to work with. Now, on the design itself, as it was sketched, if you look at the top and you look at the base, I wouldn't want the curved top to be that close to the actual round top, simply because when you look at it from a 3D perspective, that curve won't be visible all that much. I don't know if it makes sense with the 3D view that we've got now, but once I've taken it down, I'm sure it will make a bit more sense. I'll show you. So the first thing that I would want to do, let's just rename this just for future reference into the base. What I would like to do is take this panel down, extrude again, maybe 15 millimeters or so. Now 15 millimeters might do the job. I'll show you on the history and on timeline how we can alter this at a later stage if it doesn't work. And then we've got the join function set here on the extrusion tool, which means that it will not add a new body, as you can see those lines there. It'll fuse the whole thing together because everything else is hidden. So it's going to weld everything together that's visible. So you hit OK, well, visible and touching one another. Now, the first thing that we've got to do now is we want to do an arch or a curved view on top here. Now, we could do that with a sketch, but I'm going to show you my technique. We'll hit the measure tool here, which is shortcut I, and you'll simply click on the line, and you'll notice that the length of this line is 68 mil. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a chamfered or a round corner of 68 mil, but we're going to do 68 mil divided by 2 in each corner to form the full 68 millimeters. So we're going to hit it over there. We're going to say the modify, and we'll hit the fillet option, which is F. And then we'll say 68 millimeters, which will be the full 68, divided by 2, which is half of it, obviously. And we just hit the OK button. And then we're going to select the other one, shortcut F, which is the fillet tool again. We'll go 68 divided by 2, which is again half. And when you look at it from the front, got a perfect curve. And that's exactly what we were looking for. Okay? So that's the face that we wanted. So on the top panel, when you make everything visible again, you get a nice visual. But you'll notice now that this panel is not aligned with the front face of this one. So we will simply then just click the align tool again and align this plane with that plane, and there we go. So that would be where we keep that face, that side view face there. Okay, so let's go back to this and say, okay, we've got the base hidden, and we actually want this panel to slot into the base panel as well at a later stage. So I think what we will do in this case is just duplicate this curved panel. So we can hit the move a copy, and then we'll say create a copy, and we can create a copy for corner 1, and we can just actually create another copy. We need 4 of these, so we can create another copy, and we can create the last copy. So move a copy. Now we've got 4 of those units. So we'll just align the first one quickly using the align tool again. So we'll just align that plane to that plane, and then we'll align this plane to that plane. You'll notice that it actually, on that last align tool, it aligned the back panel to the front here. So we're going to obviously have to take the base and then just make sure that we align it flush with the front, just to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned like we need it to be. And then same alignment rule will happen over here. We'll go there and there. Sorry, let's not do it that way because that's going to cause confusion. Take it this way around and say there and there. And then align there, there. There we go. So that one's aligned beautifully. And then we do the same with this tool. Align this and to there. And we can align that to that. And again, this one just needs to be aligned in the front face. Now, it does occasionally require you to flip some alignment, but just select plane to plane. Eventually, you'll get it perfect. Okay, so now we've got all these panels aligned. But you'll notice that on our sketch that we created firstly, we didn't actually have a 32 mil. We had a 16 mil base here. So I'll just hide the base for the moment. And then what I'll do is we'll basically, well, there's a couple of schools of thought on this. We could cut away this entire panel here by hitting the extrude button and then slicing it down, which is the look that we want to go for. So I think let's do it anyway, just to show you how we can get it to achieve the final design. Obviously you can change it as you wish as well. So we've got that sliced down. We open, make the base visible, and the top there. And now we've got our look. Our table's getting it's getting a nice direction now. It looks the way that we want it to look. So this is with the front faces. So the one way that a person could handle this is obviously the top itself can be machined quite easily. I mean, that's just a round disc that needs to be cut out. These side faces, you don't want to have it out of square. So what you would want to do is basically link it up to the base here. So the way that you would do it is you could extrude, once again, -16 to cut it, and then extrude 16 again with a new body. That's just a little trick that I do. Instead of creating offset planes and all kinds of things, and then I just simply select this and select that, and I say join them together or weld those two pieces together, and I say okay, and it should, let's just take one step back. I just want to hide all the things that we don't need at this stage. Just make sure that we do weld it. If you do select the wrong panel, that you would weld things together that you don't want welded together, and which means that you'll have to slice and dice and do all kinds of things afterwards, which is kind of a pain sometimes. But anyway, let's hide these quickly. Sun goes over here. We go extrude -16, and then we go extrude 16, make a new body, and then combine this and that, the join option there. So okay, and go this way around, do the same thing, E-16, E16 with a new body, and then we say combine it again. Now this is just a workflow. There are, like I said earlier, there are many ways to achieve the same thing or the same technique or whatever, which is something that I'll show in the next lesson. But for now, I just want you to get an idea of how we can put this coffee table design together like we designed it on paper. So now what we've got is we've got our full side panels, and then we've got the inside panels. So what you would want to do is usually create a butt joint of 8 millimeters. Now the way that I do it is like this. Basically, I think let's start with the base itself hidden. Okay. Now, to do an 8mm butt joint, if we just hide these front faces for the moment, I'll do the extrude button here again and do 8 millimeters. 8 millimeters. extruded by 8 millimeters, and extrude this one by 8 millimeters as well. Now, if I make the base visible, you'll notice that they're now sharing a 3D space. Now, what does that mean? It means that this model is in the same space as this model, which means I can use this as a cutting tool to cut into this model. So the way I would do it is, once again, select the combine tool. This is our target body, and this is our tool body. Tool body meaning this is the blade or the slicer or the whatever. So we'll select all of these as our tool bodies. Okay. We will use the function or the operation to say cut, but in this case we're going to keep the tools because we don't want those things we don't want the cutting tools, which are these panels, to disappear or vanish by the time we're done. We want them visible and want people to be able to actually access and design whatever. It forms part of the design, but we want to join it in at the bottom. So we're going to say keep the tools, we hit OK. Now you'll notice that those lines don't cross into one another. Now, to make sense of it, we basically used these panels to cut into the bottom panel. So if I hide this, you'll notice that we've now created a cut panel here. So this top one fits into this like a puzzle piece would. Makes it easy to join and makes it easy to sort of assemble the whole thing afterwards. So you can see all these top panels have been sliced into this. I hope this makes sense. If you've got any questions or if something's not clear, please send us some email notification and I'll add on a video, or I'll send you a text, or we can just chat and I can explain it maybe a little bit better. But okay, so the panel is basically then sliced by the other model. Now we would want to do the same for our curved units on the side here, because we want to be able to join this into these walls. So let's just hide that for the moment and then make these bodies visible again. Now, just to give you an idea, you'll notice that this is a complete overlap of the two, okay? If I take this and I extrude to -8 and I sort of cut 8 mil off the edge and I make that body visible, you'll notice that this join line is now 8 millimeters into it, which is exactly what we want to achieve with this. So again, we'll use the combine tool. We'll select this panel here and we'll say, okay, fine. We want to use that as a cutting tool and that as a cutting tool to cut away at this front face. And you'll notice that what you see on the blue line here is what you'll be left with. We're going to again say, please keep the tools, and we say, okay, and all the tools are kept. Now, if I hide this front panel, you'll notice that the base panel is also now sort of slightly back, and there's an 8 mil difference. Now, even though it will work on an assembly style, it is a kind of an odd practice to use. So the way that I would usually do it is extend these also by 8 mil. So I'll just extrude by 8 mil, extrude by 8 mil, take the opposite direction, 8 mil, and then also 8 mil. Okay, down button again, and then unhide these. Now, you'll notice that this one's flush in the front and this one isn't. It's because we haven't actually trimmed these others down. So this would be -8, and this will also be -8. It's nice and flush. Same goes around here. I have to add that this is kind of the long way around of design and manufacturing, but I just want to give you some sort of idea of how the interface works and how Fusion would work, and how you would use it in stock fit. You know, the way that we would put it together so that it can actually work on a machine. Okay, so now all these panels are nice and flush with one another, and we can actually hide or unhide this panel. You'll notice that, again, you get these double lines, which shows that these parts are sharing the same space. So I want to use this and say, okay, use the base plate as a cutting line, and keep tools again and say, okay. Now you'll notice that there aren't any double lines or anything like that, which makes your life a little bit easier. And I just want to show you if I hide all the other panels, and just look at this panel from the back, you'll notice that it's been machined off on the sides here, and it's got this little part that sticks out that is 16 mil. So if you measure this, from there to there, you'll see that it's 16 millimeters. And if you measure that section there, it's 8 millimeters. So it's 8 and 8, and then it's double with a 16. Okay, and then obviously this is also 16 millimeters because that's the thickness of the cutter that we basically used. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So we've got this flat panel machined out nicely. Now, we could actually repeat this on all of these panels all around. So let's just hide the top again and make these visible. So to get that same effect, once again, do you see these lines cross over one another? That means that the models are sharing the same space, which means that if you had to CNC machine it as it's lying here, the parts won't fit unless you cut that out. Once again, we hit the combine tool, and then we'll select all the cutting tools that we want to use. And we say keep the tools, use the cut operation, say OK. And we will do the same with this one over here. Again, we selected the target body, the tool bodies. Can be everything that you want to cut. Keep the tool bodies, hit OK. Now, before I do the last one, I just want to show you a quick little trick with Fusion 360 that allows you to make sure that you didn't miss anything. We used the interference tool at the top here. Now, what the interference tool does is it basically checks whether, if you've got overlapping parts and you need them machined, it checks whether there are, conflicting or interfering panels that will, if you flatten this and if you flat pack this and machine it and put it together, whether it will be able to be put together like this. Obviously, if you don't cut the slot and this other panel is cut in its full length, then this panel will not fit. It's just like a puzzle piece without the interlinking part. So the first step is to hit the interference button here. Again, I've added mine to the toolbar. So you can just say, let's do an interference check quickly. You simply select all of it and you hit the compute button. And you'll notice that immediately it highlights the ones that we didn't do. So it shows, the software is clever enough to show you that, listen, if you don't cut this interference out, then your model is not going to work, and you're not going to be able to fit this thing together. So you can simply say, OK. So wonderful, we didn't miss anything. And just again, click there, select on the things that we want to use as cut, and say OK. Now, if we hit the interference tool again and we select it and we say compute it, it says no interference detected, which means that all these panels can be machined and we can put it together and you won't have any issues. But here's the thing now. We've got the top and the bottom and everything is done nicely. It works together. There's no interference and things like that. But I think on the curved side panels, let's just rename those quickly. Those 4. We just say curved base panel over there, and we've got our base panel. Okay. Now, as you can see, these are still joined in together, so they're not flat packed or anything. We need a flat panel of this, we need a flat panel of this, and we need to link them some way. Otherwise, we can't CNC it on our CNC machine because we're working with 16mm boards. Now, the way that one would do it is just to slice these up with the other offset plane or to do a split body. Now, the split body tool allows you to basically split this up by selecting a plane. There are, in some cases, I've noticed in the past where it's better to actually use an offset or construction plane, but I'll do both for you now just to give you a quick tip on how to use it. So if you do the split body by itself, you can select the bodies that you want to split, which would be these two, and then the splitting tool can be this plane, just that plane that you want to use. You slice it through there, and you can say extend the splitting tool, yes, and you hit OK, and that's it. That's the one way of doing it. The other way of doing it would be to create an offset plane, which will be a simple thing. And just click over there, click on that plane, and then select that plane. And then do the same split body. We say, okay, select this one, select that one, and then select this plane, and off you go. Okay? And then once you're done, you can just hide that construction plane. And now everything is sliced up. Now you'll notice that your flat panels are suddenly 8 instead of 4 because we've divided, we've sliced them up. Now what I would want to do is also the same thing that we did with the base. Now we could leave it like this. It will work. It'll be okay. But I like to link them up simply because that's from an assembly side, that really is a very strong way of building it. So for the moment, what we'll do is these center longer pieces, we'll just hide them for the moment. Just to give you some sort of idea. So those ones. And then we'll extrude these again with 8 millimeters. Extrude that by 8 millimeters. Turn it around, extrude that by 8 millimeters. And another 8 millimeters. This is just to create a nice joinery sort of system. Now, those panels, you'll notice that they overlap and link. Again, we'll do the computing and we'll check it and we'll say check for interference. And you'll notice that there we've added the 8 mil now, there's interference all around. So it's okay. So now the first thing we want to do is we want to use the shorter sides to cut into the longer sides. So the target body would be the longer side, the one that's going to be cut. And then the tool body would be the shorter panel. And then again, we will say, keep this tool, and we will hit OK. Again, we'll do that again, and then slice away. Now you'll notice again, once we do this, the interference tool, we'll have less interferences. Last time we had 4, now we only have those 2. Software is clever enough to pick up on that. Okay? Let's just do those last 2 panels quickly. And so, okay, combine and slice, keep the tools, and then combine and slice and keep those. Okay. Right, so now if we do the interference again, you'll notice that nothing should interfere, and it should be fine. And now we can actually unhide the base as well and hit the check interference button, and we'll have no interferences. Now this would be enough to actually assemble. Now you'll notice that everything is done in flat panels. I hope this is something that kind of excites you. So we've got all these panels that are flat, and if we had to flat pack this thing, the way that you'll know it's flat is simply by, if you take any body that's available here, and you just show and hide or whatever, I think just the show and hide button as well. You'll see that that is a 16 mil board that we can machine, okay? And that's a 16 mil board that we can machine, and that's a 16 mil board that we can machine. And another 16 mil board that we can machine. And I'm sure you guys get it. So basically everything is a 16 mil board that can be machined. So that's the quest, or that's the game plan. We want to try and split it up in such a way that everything consists out of 16 mil panels that we can just simply put together, and off we go. Now, we've got a beautiful base panel that has been machined to accommodate the uprights, okay? And it works really well, and the way that you join it makes it super strong. But now, if we want to put the top on, how would we make sure that our top stays dead center on this model and clips into place in it? Because as it is now, it's basically just floating on top of everything. So from a design side, yes, it looks fine, but from a manufacturing side, it's very easy as it is now to put this top slightly off center, just mount it slightly in the wrong direction, in the wrong place. So we want to prevent that at all costs. So what we'll do in this case is we'll just hide the top panel, and we will then, again, extrude, or what's the press pull function, okay? You've got press pull, or you've got extrude that you can actually, I just want to see, yeah. What happens is if you hit the extrude button and you hit the 8 millimeter with a join, it could potentially join in all the parts that are connected to this, okay, which is something that you don't want to happen, okay? So you can just use the pull function, which is the Q shortcut key, and you'll hit Q and you say 8 mil, and it'll do that, and we can hit Q again and say 8 mil. There, sorry. Oh, that's not working actually. I'm not sure why why that is happening. 8 mil, Q 8 mil, Q 8 mil. You know, it does sometimes happen that the software is a little bit buggy, or that you've done something on a face that it doesn't want to work. But I'll show you a quick workaround. So these other faces, the problem seems to be on the short faces, but we'll figure it out now. This one works fine as well. So the way, you know, if you do face an issue and you've got an error, the way that you would do this is to hit the extrude button by 8 millimeters. But instead of hitting the join button, hit the new button or new body, so that it creates a separate thing. You don't want the parts to be fused together. So we just say new body, new body. We will weld the ones together that we want welded together afterwards. What tends to happen is if you hit the join button, it joins everything that's visible and touching. So if any of these parts touch, it will just weld the whole lot together. And that's not what we want. What we do want is that part and that part attached. So we'll just hit the combine tool again and then select that one and select that one. And we say join. Do not keep tools in this case because we want them to become one fused body. And we say okay. And then we'll just do the same thing there and there. Join. Don't keep tools. Okay. Again, it's a little bit of a workaround, but it does, you know, sometimes you've got to, you can use the pull function, and sometimes you've got to use this method. It all depends on what you've done on that component or body part throughout the design. Usually the history that's scored down at the bottom here, the timeline, if you want to do something, you get an error message, it's usually because it'll affect what you've done earlier, which is what the software is trying to prevent. So if you do an extruded version and a new body and you weld the two together, you kind of almost in a way delete what happened in the past and create something new. So that's what we've done now. Now, again, if I make the top part visible, top panel visible, you'll notice that you don't get a nice crispy black line between these panels because they are basically sharing a 3D space. Again, if we do a interference check, because we extended everything, this entire top 8 millimeter that we've added now that shows the interference that we've got there. So we can just say cancel over there. Now we've got to cut out what we want to cut out. So we're going to once again hit the combine tool. It'll be a cut tool, and we will keep the tools again. So we'll go over there and we'll select all the parts that we want to use as cut tools. Okay. It's actually quite a quick process. It's not such a big deal. Just make sure that you do select the right faces. Sometimes some of them do deselect. Sometimes you've got to use some keyboard shortcuts and all kinds of things. Okay, so I think we've pretty much got them all, except for this one. Okay, so you can see everything at the bottom is pretty much red. Just that one. So all the cutting tools, we'll keep the tools again. We say, okay, Bob's your uncle. Hit the interference button and check, no interference detected. Perfect. Now if we just hide all the other panels here, and we look at the bottom of the top panel, you'll notice that it cut out this slot. Now what makes this awesome is that you could actually assemble this thing by adding all these panels systematically, as you can see on the design now. Look at the bottom, all these panels, and then we can do the curved front faces, boom, boom. And that's working from the bottom up, or from the top to the bottom. And then simply you'll be faced with this, and then you just say that, okay, attach the base, and off you go, table's built. Or you could do it from the, the opposite direction. So you could actually build, I think let's just hide all of these quickly to give you an idea. So you can start with the base, and then you can actually start by adding these panels, boom, 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 like that. And then you can do the front faces as well. And then you've got the base, and then you say, okay, cool, it's awesome. Boom, slap the top on there, and coffee table complete. Okay, so there we've got our design exactly like we sketched it out. Just hit the save button quickly, because we haven't saved it. And basically that covers the coffee table design that we discussed originally and that we sketched originally. Now, there are different steps that a person can do with this. Obviously, we know that we've designed the whole thing to be in flat panels, so it is working well. I'm not. Oh yeah, okay, it's been saved, but okay. So we've got a design now, and we're happy with it. Now, if we wanted to change anything in this timeline, we could just go back here into the sketch mode, and we can step back and back and back. Every little step that you do here is a step back in the timeline. That, I mean, if you look at the design itself, you can see this is where we duplicated the sides and that sort of thing. So you could step back into this, right click, clear everything after that timeline, and be faced with a, and go back in time. So if you do make a mistake, don't stress about it. You can simply go back. But anyway, that's the full design. Now, what we would want to do, once you've got this design, we saved it, and we've got all the body parts here, whatever, and body component elements, whatever it is. We want to rename them. So we've got the top panel, we've got the base, we've got the curved side panels, and we can just call these all the uprights. So now everything's got a name, and that's part of your bodies. Now, the way that I like to work when I design is to create a component of this. So you can right click over here, create a new component, and you can say side table, for instance. Sorry, side table. You'll notice that it's got a little tick box type of thing there. That means that we're working in an active model like this, and everything else becomes sort of grayed out like this. So if I go over here and I click there, then it makes everything visible. And we'll just take all of these things and say cut and then paste it into this model. It'll copy everything over, and we simply hit OK. Now this is a side table component. So now we've created a component called the side table. Okay. Now what's nice about working with components is that if I wanted to align something to this component, top or side or whatever, then I can use this component separately. The body tools would have each and every single body available, and in order to move this whole thing, you will have to basically select each and every single body and then move the thing together as a group if it's selected. But if it's a component and you hit the move button, it moves the entire component. I hope that makes sense. If I wanted to move each and every single body, if it wasn't a component and I wanted to move parts, I would have to select all these parts to avoid moving single parts around. Okay, so I like to create components, because what I can do is now, if I want to design an entire shop, I can then take this component, drop it into another design, and know that I've got this component sorted out. But okay, so this is basically designing the coffee table as you would have it normally in your workshop. Now, a small little detail that we add on when we do the design, which is something that we do on a design level, and we do it as a post-processing step with a little bit of hand tools, is to actually create little soft corners on these things. So what we'll do is we just create that, click on that corner, you can hit modify, and then we can either fillet or chamfer. We'll chamfer it by, let's say, 2 millimeters. And you'll notice that it just gives it that soft edge. So when you look at it from the side, it doesn't have a sharp edge. It's just got that. And you can do the same with that. You can say modify, chamfer, 1 millimeter. And you get this nice chamfer. But this is something we do with hand tools afterwards. I just want to show you on the design how a person would handle that. Let's hit the save button for now. Let's give it some idea. Now, obviously, this is a clean, white, MDF type of thing. So what we will do on the side table is you can actually do the physical material check. You simply click there. And then in this case, we're going to have wood, and we're going to have medium density fiberboard, which is your MDF. And then we will simply select and drop it on here. And now this entire thing is made, the physical material is medium density fiberboard. Now, the one thing that's cool about Fusion 360 is that, okay, so we've applied everything as medium density fiberboard, and the software knows exactly what medium density fiberboard weighs. So if you go into properties, you can get your area, you can get your density, you can get your mass, you can get everything based on. So if someone wants to ask you, okay, so how much would this weigh? You'd be able to just check on the properties and say, okay, this is going to weigh 10 kilos, or this is going to weigh so many kilos, or whatever the case is. So that's a wonderful way of getting it done. Basically, this is our entire model. We can flat pack it, and we're pretty much ready for machining. Now, the one step that you might want to do further than this is to actually apply different materials to it and show clients what it will look like. So the way that you would do that is to hit the A button, which is the appearance button, and you will go into your paint section for argument's sake, and we can say, okay, glossy paints, and let's just to lighten things up, we say, okay, let's go with a glossy red enamel. And you can simply drag and drop those colors onto the model. You can select different colors for different things if you wanted to change the colors. In this color library or whatever, there's a paint and wood and all kinds of different finishes. So if you want to do an oak top on a red base, you would be able to do that. And you can pretty much change the colors and do everything that you want to do. And basically off you go. So it gives you the opportunity to add different colors. I'll show you exactly why I'm doing this now. I know that this is kind of an odd color combination, but it's just for the purpose of the visuals at the moment. So let's say we've got a full oak top, and we've got the red base panels, and that's what we want to go with. So just save it for now. We say that is the design, and off we go. Now, basically, the first step would be you want to present this to a potential customer, for argument's sake. So we can go over here into our render workspace, and you'll notice that we are now sitting with a 3D model that we can orbit and check, and this is what the table would look like. And we can say, okay, in canvas rendering, off you go. And it will do a 3D visual of this design that we just completed. Okay. Now this is nice for customers. They can get an idea of, okay, if it's oak, it's this, is that. That's a nice way of presenting it. Obviously, in the 3D space, you can actually select different sort of highlighting and different style of sort of presentation. They've got all these different light settings. If you're familiar with 3D light settings and scene setups and things like that. I do know that you can also, in the settings, you can use all kinds of little reflections and I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of options here to just sort of communicate an idea. So now we decided to use reflections in the ground panel. You can set up the cameras, you can set up all kinds of things. So that's the one step. The other step would be you could also apply different materials and appearances. So you could turn this into a green, and you can show the customer what it would look like if we did that, or if we turned the whole thing into this, let's say, a mahogany base. Again, I'm just showing you this for presentation purposes. So if you machine this entire thing out of mahogany sheets, then basically your design would look something like that. If we did let's say something that will suit this design quite well would be to do maybe a little bit more of a pastel type of color. Then we could just simply click on here and then say, okay, we want to go with a more dusty pink type of thing. We can say, okay, done. And that could be the finish. Now, if you leave this rendering section here, it'll just keep processing and processing and processing and running through until you get a nice final visual of this design that we've just done. Okay, so that's with the 3D visual. You can then save this image, export it, show a client all the different colors and options and things available on the design. and off you go. Now the other option would be if you go into the design window here, you'll notice that it also brought the materials and things back to this side, which is a nice way of Fusion sort of integrating what you do on other workspaces to then bring it over to this workspace once you've decided something. So, which means you don't have to redo things, which is something that I love. But now we'll just go on the file here and we'll just say a new drawing from a design. Now in this case, I do have a bunch of templates here. Yours might be different. Just say hit OK there. You select your templates. Got a template over here. It wants to drop the model in there. And we can say OK. And then over here we can say the projected view. You can go from the top view, another side view, and then a 3D view for argument's sake. And just we can do this, and we can just say I can make this one a full color. And now we can add and check those dimensions. So we can say, okay, we want to check what this dimension, this 450 like we originally discussed. Keep in mind that we do have those little soft corners. So if you want to make sure that you get the 16 mil measurement, you don't want to select those two inside corners because it will be smaller. You can have these dimensions plus those dimensions. You can have those dimensions to make sure that you're in line with what you originally designed. Go across to there. Obviously to the half it's going to be 250 or whatever, and that's basically it. So now we've got a sketch explaining everything that there is to explain. You could also edit this by right clicking on that, edit view, and then you can actually display the grid so that if you produce this, your assembly team or you can actually then understand the drawing and understand the model quite well. Another thing that you can also do is, because this design is the same on the front and the side, you could delete that, and then just for good fun, you can actually take this one, you can increase the size to a little bit bigger, and then move it to where you want it in the drawing. And I don't know, just sometimes you want to move certain things and make them a little bit bigger, make a few things a little bit smaller. That's how it will work. And now we can just hit the save button. It will automatically give it a naming convention, which is the file name with a drawing attached, drawing name sort of added onto the name itself. You hit the save button, and then once it's saved, you can simply hit the output to PDF. You can say open the PDF. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to save it onto the desktop quickly. It'll save it, and then once it's done, it'll open the PDF of this. There we go, PDF is open, and you get a nice visual of what the drawing would look like. You would present this to the customer then. Customer will sign off, and then off you go. Now, we've got the entire design. We've got we created a sketch of that design. We've got the 3D model, and the best part is that this model can now be machined and then put together. So I think we've covered everything regarding the design of our side table. I don't think we missed anything. So from here on, we can just go directly into setting up for CAM, which is setting up for the CNC machine. And we can basically start manufacturing these little tables.